Do you know how lonely it is to remain hopeful? I feel like a lot of what's happening in the world is causing a lot of pessimistic views. And I mean, rightfully so. Rightfully so. Especially within my generation, Gen Z. It's like we really aren't giving a fuck anymore. It's hard to watch. And it's crazy because for the longest time, I was the pessimist, right? I grew up being sort of pessimistic, not in my childhood, but more so in my teenage years. I started to become like aggressively pessimistic. But, it just feels strange when you're an adult now and, all this time people, well, I'm not going to say all this time, but let's just say, you become an adult and you meet someone, you fall in love, and that person notices your pessimistic views and they challenge you, right? Like imagine being challenged for your pessimistic views and being challenged to see the world in a healthier light, in a more nuanced light. I like looking back, like I would say, much like a lot of people who are pessimistic, um, the views can be quite rigid. And I always saw myself as this independent thinker, but sometimes when you say the things that you think you are, it's really the things that you want to be. And I feel like during that time, yeah, I became very rigid in my views. But he challenged me. And through enough time, I've I've allowed myself to evolve. I've allowed myself to be challenged and I've allowed myself to change. And I've allowed myself to have a more hopeful view. But here's the tragedy. Because of the current events that are happening today, on top of a whole bunch of personal stressors and pre-existing problems, even the closest ones to you are starting to lose hope. The hope that you didn't have at first, the hope that you learned through them. You look at it and it's like, you know, you were the one that was always telling me to look on the bright side of things. You were the one that was always, and it's just really painful to watch because you really do see yourself. You see yourself in them. And it's like, what were people able to tell you during that time? How hard was it to convince you? And it could be for whatever reasons, like obviously when it comes to mental health, depression, anxiety disorders, just the whole spectrum of mental health issues that are exacerbated by current events sometimes, exacerbated by life. I don't want to blame life. I don't want to blame life because it's already fragile as it is. But it's just something so weird about seeing the transformation and then looking back at a person and thinking like, I used to have thoughts like this. Like I used to be in a familiar place, not the same place, where different people with different problems, different personalities. So it'll never be the exact same. But like when you come from a similar place and you see somebody who's like that, it's like it can feel a little bit lonely because it's like, hey, like I finally got it. Like I finally caught up. Like that's what you feel like a little bit, right? Like you feel like I finally caught up to this whole hopeful thing, and then you just look at the world around you and everybody give up. So to anybody who's feeling the same way, hi. Um, Remain hopeful. It's getting more scarce.